Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie The Man with the Iron Fists in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, friends. In today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called The Man with the Iron Fists. I am also going to give you all the information on which platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. This video is produced by We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie. In today's video, I'm going to tell you apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film storyline, starcast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will give you a small review of the story of this film. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. That's why I request you, friends, to watch this video till the end. So let's start the video, The Man with the Iron Fists. Chise 2012 American martial arts film directed by RZA and written by RZA and Eli Roth. The film stars RZA, Russell Crowe, Cung, Lucy Liu, Byron Mann, Rick Yoon, Dave Bautista, and Jamie Chung. Set in 19th century China, the story follows a series of lone warriors who are forced to unite to defeat a common foe and save their home of Jungle Village. Development began in 2005 when RZA shared his idea for the film with Roth. After nearly 2 years of development, Roth and RZA secured financial backing in May 2010. Filming began in December 2010 on a $15 million budget and concluded by March 2011. The film was shot in Shanghai and at other locations in China. RZA and Howard Drawson composed the film's musical score, and RZA produced its soundtrack, which featured several new songs by various artists. A series of concerts featuring music from the soundtrack were held to promote the film. The film was released in North America on November 2, 2012. Critics were divided over the film's homage to martial arts films, considering it well choreographed and representative of the genre, but offering nothing original, and the direction was criticized for a lack of refinement. The performances of Crowe and Mann were well received. The film earned $20.5 million at the box office. Plot. In 19th century China, Jungle Village is home to several warring clans. The village blacksmith creates deadly weapons for the clans, intending to use his payments to purchase the freedom of his lover, Lady Silk, and leave the village. The region's governor tasks the Lion Clan's leader, Gold Lion, with protecting a large shipment of gold that must pass through the village. Gold is betrayed by his lieutenants, Silver Lion and Bronze Lion, who plan to steal the gold. They use the chaos ensuing from a fight with the Hyena clan to allow their co-conspirator Poison Dagger, the governor's aide, to assassinate Gold, after which Silver becomes the Lion's leader. Gold's son Zhen Yi learns of his father's murder and sets off to the village to seek revenge. The Qing Emperor's undercover emissary Jackknife arrives in the village to monitor the gold and takes up residence in the Pink Blossom, a brothel run by Madame Blossom, Lady Silk's madam. Silver sends members of the Rodent clan to kill Zhen Yi before he can reach the village, but Zhen Yi kills them. The mercenary Brass Body arrives in the village and meets with Silver. He is sent to kill Zhen Yi. The blacksmith meets with Silk in the brothel and delivers the final payment needed to free her. After arriving in the village, Zhen Yi and his men are confronted by Brass and find that they cannot physically harm him because his skin turns to metal on impact. Brass beats Zhen Yi and destroys his blade-laden armor. Zhen Yi's last surviving man sacrifices himself to pull a canopy support beam loose, burying Brass under heavy stone. The blacksmith is watching the fight. He rescues Zhen Yi and helps him recover as penance for crafting the weapon that killed Zhen Yi's father. Meanwhile, the gold shipment arrives in the village, accompanied by 2 skilled warriors, the Geminis. The Lions soon confront the Geminis and their men, and in the ensuing fight, Poison Dagger assassinates the Geminis and the Lions capture the gold. Jack later arrives to investigate the incident and learns that the Geminis were poisoned with mercury-tipped weapons, leading him to the blacksmith. The Lions' theft prompts the governor to send his jackal troops to recover the shipment or destroy the village. Zhen Yi asks the blacksmith to craft him a new suit of weaponized armor. The Lions suspect that the blacksmith is helping Zhen Yi and have him tortured for information. The blacksmith refuses to talk, and Brass cuts off his forearms. Jack, who had been following the blacksmith, saves him from bleeding to death. While the blacksmith recovers, he tells Jack of his past as an emancipated American slave who accidentally killed a white man who refused to let him go. He fled America by boat and went to China, where monks trained him to use his body's energy to perform superhuman feats. Jack, with the aid of the blacksmith, crafts his greatest weapon, a pair of iron forearms that he can animate using this energy. Zhen Yi recovers and joins Jack and the blacksmith. Meanwhile, Blossom offers to let Silver hide the gold in a secret tomb beneath the brothel in return for payment. The gold is stored in a coffin, which is raised up to the rafters. That night, Blossom has her girls serve the lions, and Silk serves Brass. At Blossom's signal, the girls use weapons hidden in their mouths to poison many of the lions, and they join with Blossom as the Black Widows. When Silk tries to poison Brass, his skin protects him, and he beats and almost kills her. Zhen Yi, Jack, and the blacksmith arrive and join with the Black Widows to fight the remaining lions while Blossom and Bronze fight and kill each other. While fighting Jack, Poison Dagger is crushed to death between large moving gears. Silver and Zhen Yi fight in the tomb. Zhen Yi cuts the coffin free and it crushes Silver, killing him. The blacksmith finds Silk, who dies in his arms. He confronts Brass, and his iron fists prove capable of inflicting damage on Brass's seemingly invincible body. While Brass is in metal form, a powerful punch from the blacksmith shatters him to pieces. Jack runs outside in time to stop the soldiers from decimating the building with Gatling guns. Ultimately, Jack leaves the village to accompany the gold, and Zhen Yi tells the blacksmith that he has gained a brother. With the clans destroyed and the village safe, the blacksmith vows to keep it that way and destroys the sign pointing to his weapon shop. During the credits, Zhen Yi's pregnant fiancée is kidnapped by a bird clan, prompting Zhen Yi to seek the blacksmith's aid. Cast RZA as Blacksmith, the man with the iron fists, an emancipated slave from America who becomes the blacksmith of Jungle Village. He channels an ancient energy to turn himself into a living weapon. His name is Thaddeus Henry Smith. Arze wrote the role specifically for himself and trained in Hunga for 1 to 2 hours a day over 2 months in preparation. Rick Uni is Zhen Yi, the son of the murdered Lion Clan leader who goes to Jungle Village to avenge his father's death. Arze said that he had Yune in mind for the role before the script had been completed. Russell Crowe is Jackknife, an opium-addicted British soldier named after his signature weapon. The character was partly inspired by Arze's late cousin Old Dirty Bastard. Crowe based his performance on Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry 1971 and The Outlaw Josie Wales 1976. Crowe agreed to join the cast because of his previous working relationship with Arze. Crowe was only able to spend 10 days filming his scenes. Lucy Liu is Madame Blossom, the owner of the Pink Blossom brothel, whom Liu described as the queen of the village. Liu wanted to emphasize Blossom's strength against all the male fighters and convinced RZA to give the character a fight sequence with Kung Lei's Bronze Lion. David Bautista as a mercenary capable of turning his body to metal, making him invulnerable. Bautista described the character as a good guy who made a lot of bad choices in his life. He doesn't really understand the difference between right and wrong. Arze auditioned Bautista for the role after seeing him moving as fast as lightning during a stick-fighting training video. Jamie Chung as Lady Silk, a prostitute in the Pink Blossom and the blacksmith's lover. Kung Lei as Bronze Lion, a member of the Lion Clan. Lee came to RZA's attention following his 2008 mixed martial arts fight against Frank Shamrock. Bronze Lion's fighting style incorporates elements of Tiger Kung Fu and Lee's own training in kicks and scissor kicks. Byron Mann is Silver Lion, the leader of the Lion Clan after he kills the previous leader. Mann was initially cast for a smaller role, but after his successful audition, he was given the bigger role of Silver Lion. The cast also includes Pam Grier as the blacksmith's mother Jane, Osric Chow as blacksmith's assistant, MC Jin as Zhen Yi's ally Chan, Daniel Wu as Poison Dagger, and Andrew Lin and Grace Huang as the Geminis. Co-writer Eli Roth appears in a cameo. Several veteran martial arts actors, including Chin Quan Tai as Golden Lion, Brian Leung as Hyena Chief, Telly Liu as Iron Lion, Shui Jing Yao as Copper Lion, Ju Ju as Xin Yi's fiancé Chi Chi, Terrence Yin as the governor, and Gordon Liu as the abbot appeared in the film. Liu's role was written for RZA's Shaolin teacher Shi Yanming, but Ming could not obtain permission to return to China for filming. Production. Development. Development of the film began in 2003 when RZA produced the soundtrack for Quentin Tarantino's film Kill Bill. RZA set himself a $50,000 budget and flew to the Kill Bill set in Beijing, where he spent approximately 30 days taking notes on the way Tarantino directed the film. In 2005, RZA met Eli Roth in Iceland, and they traveled together to LA. During the journey, RZA told Roth of his idea for a kung fu genre film, which attracted Roth's interest, but no further progress was made. RZA completed the story for the film, but Roth convinced him that he would need a completed screenplay for the project to gain any support. In 2007, after Roth's Hostel Part 2 was released, Roth and RZA agreed to seriously pursue the project. The pair took the project to several studios and met with their preferred producer, Edward R. Pressman. One of the studios suggested setting the film in a post-apocalyptic situation, which RZA considered. They took the project to Strike Entertainment, which considered that it needed more development and assigned several writers to rewrite the script, which began to depart from RZA's initial idea. RZA continued to work with Strike Entertainment's writers, but Roth, who returned from filming Inglourious Basterds, was disappointed with the rewritten screenplay, and he and RZA spent a year developing and finalizing it. In total, they spent between 18 months and 2 years developing the screenplay in between other projects and turned RZA's 90-page story into a 130-page screenplay. Citing the specificity of the fictional universe in the Star Wars series, Roth said that the pair tried to fully define the aspects of the man with the iron fists to make it interesting without fight scenes. Roth said that RZA had imagined every tribe, every fighting style, every costume. The original script focused on several animal-themed clans fighting over territory, in particular Jungle Village, which acted as a center for shipments. As the script developed, several of the clans were removed, and the focus shifted to commerce and the transportation of government gold, which also introduced the government as a higher power over the clans. RZA and Roth approached fights in the script by introducing a new character, fighting style or weapon to avoid monotony. If a fight did not advance the story, they removed it. RZA then financed and directed a short martial arts film called Wu-Tang vs. the Golden Phoenix featuring Hong Kong-based kung fu-trained actors. When he and Roth pitched The Man with the Iron Fist to producers, RZA used the short film to prove that he could handle the martial arts action and be trusted to take on his first directing role. On May 7, 2010, Universal Pictures announced it had agreed to finance and distribute the film, which Roth and Strike Entertainment's Marc Abraham and Eric Newman would produce. The producers gave RZA a $20 million budget. During the development process, Tarantino agreed to lend his name to the film with a "presented by" credit. In October 2012, RZA said that he and Tarantino had intended to cross over The Man with the Iron Fist with Tarantino's 2012 Western Django Unchained. The crossover would have included a younger version of RZA's blacksmith character in a slave auction, but scheduling conflicts prevented RZA's participation. The Man with the Iron Fist spent 14 weeks in pre-production, including 4 to 6 weeks on location scouting. RZA insisted that 6 weeks of pre-production would be sufficient, but Marc Abraham told him to take 14 weeks, for which RZA was later thankful after he reached week 13 and still needed more time. During filming, RZA and Roth discussed the potential for a sequel if the film was successful. Filming. Principal photography took place over approximately 10 weeks on a $20 million budget. Filming began in China in December 2010 in locations including the city of Shanghai and Hengdian World Studios and continued until March 2011. Corey Yuen was the film's action choreographer. To compensate for time lost to filming issues, some scenes were filmed in a single take. Approximately 6 weeks into filming, RZA began pushing the crew to work faster to remain on schedule. His assistant director eventually informed RZA that because of the push, some stunt workers were injured and being sent to hospital. After this, RZA abandoned some of his intended shots and replaced them with computer-generated images, CGI. Roth also directed some shots for RZA. Crowe and Lee were originally scripted to fight each other, but because of Crowe's limited shooting schedule, he did not have the time to rehearse the fight, and instead Lee was scripted to fight Liu. The first cut of the film was 4 hours long, and RZA suggested splitting it into 2 films, but Roth disagreed. It was edited to 96 minutes to meet the studio's requirements and to excise graphic content that would cause it to receive a restrictive rating, limiting its audience. RZA abandoned the editing process for 2 weeks, feeling disgust at having to cut the film. In October 2012, he said that he intended to release a director's cut of the film for home viewing and would reinsert at least 13 minutes of the cut footage. RZA described the film as an homage to the martial art films of the Hong Kong-based Shaw brothers. The film used mostly practical special effects in preference to CGI. An effect in which Yune's character kills 6 opponents whose airborne blood spray spells out revenge in Chinese was specifically written to use CGI. RZA declined to subtitle the message for English audiences. The action scenes resulted in several injuries, and Bautista suffered raw and bleeding arms from RZA's sandpaper-like prop iron fists during their fight scene. Marketing. RZA launched an 11-date music concert called the Iron Fists Tour to promote the film in association with Rock the Bells and Guerrilla Union. It featured performances by members of Wu-Tang Clan and other artists. The tour began on October 3, 2012, and visited several North American cities, including New York City, Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. An animated short film about the blacksmith's journey to China and his first meeting with Brass Body, which RZA narrated, was released on October 20, 2012, as a prequel to the film. 16 heavily stylized posters, each by a different artist, were placed in outdoor locations in several North American cities and were designed to allow pedestrians to remove and keep them. The marketing campaign sponsored the 2012 BET Hip Hop Awards, Star Bautista's debut mixed martial arts debut fight at Classic Entertainment and Sports, Real Pain in October 2012, and the release of the video game Assassin's Creed 3. The film premiered in Los Angeles and New York City and directly targeted minority demographics. RZA promoted the film at the Hispanic-owned Martial Arts History Museum in Burbank, California, and an original Spanish-dubbed viral video was also released. RZA targeted African-American audiences by promoting the film on rapper Snoop Dogg's YouTube channel. An online awareness campaign included partnerships with Machinima Inc., hip-hop news site Global Grind, Ultimate Fighting Championship, IGN, and Spotify. Music. Main article, The Man with the Iron Fists. The film features music from the Black Keys, Kanye West, Wiz Khalifa, My Chemical Romance, John Frusciante, and Chinese singer Sally Ye. RZA also developed new tracks based on excerpts from Wu-Tang Clan master tracks provided by Sony Music, and songs performed by William Bell, Isaac Hayes, and Mabel John, which Stax Records provided. Composer Howard Drawson wrote the original musical cues for the film. RZA had not initially set out to score the film. He inserted temporary tracks of songs he wanted to use. After watching the temporary track cut of the film, the music was found to be unsuitable, and it was suggested that RZA provide the music. RZA sought Tarantino's help with the score after he helped Tarantino with the score for Kill Bill. Tarantino also suggested RZA entirely produce the score. RZA and Drawson developed and finalized the score. They then developed the film's soundtrack, which was scheduled for release on October 23, 2012, and features 15 songs from the film, including original songs by Kanye West, the Wu-Tang Clan, Talib Kweli, Ghostface Killah, Pusha T, Raekwon, and collaborations by RZA with the Black Keys and Flatbush Zombies. The character Jackknife, who was influenced by rapper Old Dirty Bastard, has a theme tune featuring a jaw harp cue reminiscent of the artist's song Shimmy Shimmy Ya. The blacksmith is represented by cues from Isaac Hayes' music. Release. The Man with the Iron Fists premiered on October 25, 2012 at Mann's Chinese Six Theater in Hollywood. David Bautista attended in a yellow spandex suit, which he wore as a tribute to Bruce Lee, who wore a similar outfit in Game of Death, 1972. The film was released in North America on November 2, 2012. Home media. The Man with the Iron Fists was released on DVD, Blu-ray, and digital download on February 12, 2013 in North America. The DVD and Blu-ray editions contain the theatrical release version of the film, an unrated cut containing approximately 12 minutes of additional footage, deleted scenes, and 3 featurettes. A look inside The Man with the Iron Fists, A Path to the East, and On the Set with RZA. Reception. Box office. The Man with the Iron Fists grossed $15.6 million from North America and $4 million from other territories for a worldwide total of $19.7 million against a $15 million budget. Pre-release tracking in North America for the week before release estimated that the film would attract a mostly male audience and would earn between $7 million and $10 million during its opening weekend. The Man with the Iron Fists earned $3 million during its opening day, and during its opening weekend, the film earned $7.9 million from 1,868 theaters, an average of $4,235 per theater, finishing fourth behind Holdover Argo, $10.2 million, and fellow new releases Flight, $25 million, and Wreck-It Ralph, $49.1 million. The largest demographic of the opening weekend audience was under 30, 53%. And male 64%. Critical reception. The Man with the Iron Fists received mixed reviews from critics. It has garnered a 51% approval rating from 86 critics, an average rating of 5.1 out of 10, on the review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, which said, "Messy Kung Fu homage." The Man with the Iron Fists demonstrates a slavish affection for the genre it mimics, for better or worse. Metacritic provides a score of 51 out of 100 from 19 critics, which indicates mixed or average reviews. CinemaScore polls reported that the average grade moviegoers gave the film was C+ on an A+ to F scale. Variety's Andrew Barker called the film endearing and engagingly enthusiastic and said it is more fun than it ought to be. Barker considered RZA's on-screen role to be too withdrawn to carry the central character role, but praised the supporting performances, especially those of Lee's crime lord and Crowe, who Barker said smirkingly goes for broke to an extent that viewers haven't seen from him since, well, ever. Barker also praised the film's score, but was critical of the script's uneven tone. The New York Times' Manohla Dargis called it an erratically enjoyable product of a deep cinephile passion for the martial arts genre. Dargis praised Crowe's performance and Byron Mann's gaudy baddie with heavy metal hair and a psycho grin, but considered RZA's central role a mistake, saying, "With his sleepy eyes and an affect so laid back, is too recessive a screen presence to make the character pop, much less hold your interest." The AV Club's Nathan Rabin credited RZA's conceptualization of the rich, bloody, dense universe he created down to the most insignificant details, and praised RZA's powerful inner calm and Crowe's defiantly theatrical turn. The Los Angeles Times' Betsy Sharkey called it a martial arts spectacle that may just be one of the best bad movies ever. Sharkey said that some uneven performances and lack of refinement were the result of RZA's lack of directing experience, but appreciated the choreography of the extreme action and the film's visual aesthetic, which she described as a blend of French Baroque and ancient China. Sharkey said that the plot goes seriously off course when expanding on the blacksmith's history. The Hollywood Reporter's Todd McCarthy said that the film is sufficiently well done and amusing enough to satisfy the appetites of fans who mainline this sort of thing, but considered that in directly acting as an homage to the genre, it lacked any stylistic inspiration or imaginative flair to reinvent it. McCarthy, however, praised the imaginative weapon designs and the performances of Lucy Liu and Crowe. The Village Voice's Nick Pinkerton said, "The action scenes are often too cluttered for legibility, and curious to say of a movie made by a musician, the film has broad swaths without tempo," and added that it has a homemade charm that he found curiously touching. USA Today's Scott Bowles was critical of the film, awarding it 1.5 stars out of 4. He said that the film is heavy on bloody kung fu action and light on just about everything else, that it doesn't have enough tension to be taken seriously or enough laughs to be taken lightly, and called it slick and hip. Bowles wrote that the film has beautifully choreographed moments, and the action sequences won't disappoint any fans of slow-motion fistfights and arteries that gush like fire hydrants. Independent film critic Emmanuel Levy wrote that Crowe's commanding performance and his chemistry with Liu lift the film slightly above the routine. Levy said that the film is an ultra-violent movie that blends thrilling martial arts sequences orchestrated and executed by some of the masters of this specific milieu with a semi-involving tale that would be appreciated by a young, indiscriminating audience. Leonard Maltin of IndieWire said that Arze's understated performance isn't bad, but his staging of action leaves something to be desired, and that the film imitates earlier kung fu films, which it fails to improve upon. Accolades. The Man with the Iron Fists received nominations for Golden Fleece and Best Wild Posts at the 2013 Golden Trailer Awards. Its song, Carry It, was nominated for Best Original or Adapted Song at the Black Reel Awards of 2013. Sequel. Main article. The Man with the Iron Fists 2. A sequel was announced by Arze in an interview with the title The Man with the Iron Fists, Sting of the Scorpion, but revealed that he's not directing the sequel. Instead, Rel Ryan will direct the film as Arze. Rick Yoon, Zhu Zhu, Andrew Lin, and Grace Huang will reprise their roles as the Blacksmith, X-Blade, Chi-Chi, and the Gemini Twins. Joining the cast are Dustin Nguyen, Kerry Tagawa, Carl Ning, and Simon Yin. The sequel was released on DVD and Blu-ray on April 14th. 2015, The Man with the Iron Fists review. Here is a colossally joyless star ego fest, a martial arts mashup in which one of the characters with absolute seriousness refers to his penis as the baby's arm. It's co-produced by Eli Roth and directed and co-written by its star Arze, the Wu-Tang Clan rapper, whose stunning lack of charisma and acting ability is apparent from the get-go. The film is also presented by Quentin Tarantino, and the master's influence is felt primarily in the movie's garish opening and closing credits, where there is a flicker of the old magic. But this has really none of the delirious inspiration and provocation of the Kill Bill movies. Arze plays a blacksmith in 19th century imperial China who leads a ragtag warrior crew, defending a village against marauding gangsters. Russell Crowe is roistering British soldier of fortune Jack Knife. He pleasures a simpering bevy of Chinese prostitutes with his baby's arm, but these same prostitutes are naturally allowed their own measure of empowering violence. They are employed by Madame Blossom, played by Lucy Liu, who is now almost clinically catatonic. Rick Yoon plays Zhen Yi, and former wrestling star David Bautista plays the sinister tough guy Brass Body. It's leaden, boorish, and dull. Written and directed by the New York rap artist who styles himself RZA, real name Robert Fitzgerald Diggs, this English-speaking martial arts movie is set in 19th century China, where an African-American played by the versatile RZA has been washed up after a shipwreck and become a blacksmith in a rural territory controlled by warring clans of outlaws. After both his arms are severed by the outlaws, he manufactures an unbreakable new pair made of iron. And with the help of Madame Blossom, the handsomely aging Lucy Liu, proprietor of the exotic local brothel, and the English adventurer Jack Knife, Russell Crowe reprising his Jack Aubrey from Master and Commander, he seeks a bloody revenge. The violence is extreme and preposterous, the fights ingeniously choreographed. The producer Tarantino, his actual credit is presence. Plot. When a stranger, Thaddeus, is found badly wounded near the village, miner Li Kung and his wife Ani offer him refuge. As he heals, he becomes entrenched in a conflict that pits the townsfolk against the evil Master Ho, his nefarious Beetle clan, and the terrifying Lord Pai. Review. The first Man with the Iron Fists was mildly entertaining fun, but was pretty forgettable, and I think we were all surprised when they announced that a sequel was in development. The RZA once again returns as Thaddeus, aka the Man with the Iron Fists, and I have to admit that I enjoyed this more than the first. The story was more straightforward, and although it's nothing new, it does have an old-school kung fu movie feel about it. The RZA isn't going to win any acting awards anytime soon, but Thaddeus is a likable hero, and watching him pound on bad guys with his iron fists is incredibly satisfying. Directed by Rel Raine, he once again proves that he is one of the best indie directors working today, with his work on Dead in Tombstone and Death Race 2 and 3 under his belt. His films are beautifully shot with coherent action scenes, and this movie is no different. It also has plenty of over-the-top violence, which is hilariously fun. Prepare to behold one of the best exploding bad guy deaths of all time. Dustin Nguyen gives a controlled performance as Lee Cung, a man who refuses to engage the Beetle Clan in combat. However, when his hand is forced, it's worth waiting for. The fight scenes are well shot, and it's refreshingly filmed on real locations, with the interior of the mines creating a genuine sense of scale. Carl Ling is clearly enjoying himself as the smug villain Master Ho, and you hate him from the second he comes on screen. He's basically a cartoon villain with no depth at all, but that's what makes him so entertaining. Sometimes villains don't need backstories and you just enjoy watching them be mean. I'm always pleased to see Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa, who plays the mayor, and his role is quite pivotal to the story. Speaking of the story, there are a few twists and turns which I didn't see coming, so credit is definitely due there. The script from the RZA isn't the best ever, but it's adequate to tell the story and the dialogue isn't clunky. I noticed during the opening credits that one of the editors was one Chuck Norris, but it's a different guy, sadly. I enjoyed the music when it was just the instrumental score, but the hip-hop tunes felt totally out of place, and I could have done without them. It is a little slow in the first half, and there is the odd piece of ropey acting, but I'd be lying if I didn't say this movie was a bloody good time. The final 20 minutes has action galore, with plenty of inventive violence and satisfying fight scenes. Overall, The Man with the Iron Fist 2 is an improvement over the first movie and is a lot of fun. Have a few beers first, and there are worse ways to spend a Saturday night. The Man with the Iron Fists is the passion project of RZA, pronounced RZA, who has always been very open about his love of the martial arts movie genre. In fact, hip-hop group Wu-Tang Clan, which RZA founded, owes their very persona to the martial arts flicks created by the likes of the Shaw Brothers, Five Deadly Venoms, and Gordon Liu, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. Man with the Iron Fists is not just RZA's directorial debut. Then, it is a love letter to a celebrated branch of cinema. Today's martial arts films are a bigger box office draw than they were in the 70s and 80s eras of the Shaws, or Liu. So RZA is an untested director working in a very demanding genre. Is passion alone enough to set Man with the Iron Fists on the same level as the films it seeks to pay homage to? RZA's knowledge of martial arts cinema and his funky hip-hop swagger are imprinted all over the DNA of the film, which results in a very mixed bag. While Man with the Iron Fists has its strong points, the action, it's ultimately an experiment that suffers more setbacks than breakthroughs. The story takes place in Jungle Village, a savage town in rural China where warring clans of warriors all seek to rule the land. Caught in the middle of the chaos is the blacksmith, RZA, whose skill at crafting weapons makes him the paid lackey of every clan wishing to eliminate their rivals. However, the blacksmith has a different agenda. Use the money from selling his deadly wares to escape Jungle Village with his love Lady Silk, Jamie Chung, a prostitute in Madame Blossom's Lucy Liu bordello. Meanwhile, chaos is erupting all over Jungle Village. The governor has a shipment of gold passing through, gold that every clan wants for themselves. When the noble Gold Lion, Quan Tai Chen, is betrayed and assassinated by his second-in-command, Silver Lion, Byron Mann, the fallen leader's son, Zhen Yi, the ex-Blade Rick Yoon, comes seeking revenge. This vendetta quickly erupts into all-out war, bringing other killers like the insatiable jackknife, Russell Crowe, and impenetrable brass body, David Bautista, into the ring. From there, it's a showdown to the last man or woman standing as destinies are discovered and blood is spilt all over the streets of Jungle Village. As stated, Man with the Iron Fists is very much a RZA product, for better and for worse. The musician-filmmaker's knowledge of the genre comes in handy. His script, co-written with hostile director Eli Roth, is full of colorful characters and ideas, while his direction of the martial arts sequences draws upon the canon of films that made the genre so popular, offering some admirable action excitement. However, those same characters are far more interesting in concept than actual characterization, and narratively speaking, the story of the film is as poorly developed as its players are. The movie takes itself way too seriously for what it is, a silly action flick, and attempts several twists, all of which fall utterly flat, as the revelations tend to confuse more than surprise. Instead of character development or foreshadowing, we're given heavy-handed exposition drops and awkward flashback sequences that feel totally at odds with the other portions of the film. See the blacksmith slavery drama backstory. This problem extends to other areas, and Man with the Iron Fist feels, in total, like a mismatched pastiche work. The hip-hop soundtrack often rips you right out of the film, as it's completely incongruent with the imagery and atmosphere. I say this as a personal fan of many of the featured musicians. The dialogue is similarly problematic, oscillating between overly dramatic martial arts platitudes and crude modern slang terminology. In short, the movie can't decide exactly what it wants to be, and that confusion is perennially apparent as you watch it. RZA must have called in a lot of favors to gather the cast that he did. The musician has never been the best actor and wisely keeps his screen time to a minimum for the first two-thirds of the film, which is ultimately strange to see since he is the titular character. Keeping us occupied in his stead are a portly Russell Crowe, who chews the scenery down to the gristle, Lucy Liu, who is almost a carbon copy of her Yakuza leader character from Kill Bill, Byron Mann, who tries to inject some actual theatricality into his villain performance, while Bautista, Rick Yune, and martial arts star Kung Lei Tekken are basically there to showcase their physicality. The film also offers plenty of Easter egg cameos that only the most hardcore movie fans will recognize. International stars like Daniel Wu, Brian Yang, Grace Huang, Juju, and Andrew Lin show up in various roles. Some aging martial arts movie stars are also thrown in the mix. Quan Tai Chen, star of the Shaw Brothers classic Five Deadly Venoms, cameos as Gold Lion. John T. Ben riffs on his boss role in Bruce Lee's Way of the Dragon by playing a plantation owner known as Master. And 36 Chambers star Gordon Liu appears as the wise old Abbott, an alias RZA adopted for his hip-hop career. 70s blaxploitation star Pam Grier, Jackie Brown, shows up for a split second during the strange slavery drama flashback sequence, though she's all but unrecognizable. The action in Man with the Iron Fists, which is really the big selling point of the film, is just okay. Some of the fight choreography and wire-few acrobatics are wonderful and exciting, but too much of the film relies on tightly framed, quick-cut editing techniques and CGI blood spurts. There are hints of classic martial arts flicks peppered throughout the action sequences, but much of it looks like the work of an amateur director getting a great deal of help from more experienced personnel. By the time RZA straps on those eponymous iron fists to get in on the action, said action has devolved into almost ridiculous spectacle. The man has love for films, but still has a long road to travel before he becomes a quality filmmaker in his own right. The potential is there, though. Man with the Iron Fists is only for those who love their martial arts flicks, no matter how cheesy or silly, or those who love the sometimes discordant mix of Asian and hip-hop culture. As it stands, the film is destined to become a cult classic seen round the bootleg or cable TV movie circuits. Theater tickets, however, are a bit too steep a price to pay. As endearing as it is exhausting, the Man with the Iron Fists bears strong resemblance to a hyperactive puppy. Sloppy, scatterbrained, manic, and migraine-inducing, but possessing an earnest sense of excitement. Working with actors, a crew, and resources of a far higher caliber than his level of filmmaking expertise would seem to countenance, first-time writer-director star, the RZA turns in a postmodern martial arts experiment that's equal parts Shaw Brothers, Adult Swim, and amphetamine-fueled student film. For an utterly bonkers vanity project, it's more fun than it ought to be. and should bring a small yet sufficient ruckus to the BO. If any figure from hip-hop's golden age was going to make the leap from rhymes to reels, the Wu-Tang Clan's founder, rapper, producer, and overall shogun certainly seems the most obvious. Leading 8 of his disparate compatriots to phenomenal success in the 1990s, RZA served as the great Staten Island collective's unquestioned auteur, composing all its early music, maintaining a consistent aesthetic and mythology, and ably stage managing a large group of eccentric, unpredictable talents. Yet translating this relevant experience to film is hardly a seamless switch, even when the subject matter is as compatible as it is here. Assisted by mentor Quentin Tarantino, for whom he scored Kill Bill, and who gets a presented by credit here, and co-scripter Eli Roth, RZA at times seems too excited to be behind the camera. A giddy prologue sets a grainy kung fu throwdown to the Wu-Tang's "Shame on a Nigga," whereupon RZA's voiceover lays out a rather simple premise in nearly incomprehensible fashion. Set in a 19th century Chinese hamlet where naturally all relevant business, banking, and governance are conducted at the local brothel, the film concerns a humble, escaped slave blacksmith who dreams of whisking his girlfriend, Jamie Chung, away from her obligations with the local madam, Lucy Liu. Things are complicated by the arrival of a gaggle of unsavories seeking a treasure of some sort, most problematically a sinister crime lord, Kung Lei, and his hulking thug, David Bautista, with eyes on the blacksmith's girl and a brass body capable of dispensing severe punishment. But help arrives from a mysterious knife-toting British hedonist, Russell Crowe, and a bedaggered mercenary, Rick Yoon, out to protect his own neck. For the first half hour, nearly every shot seems to contain a dramatic reveal or zoom. Things are frenetically mashed together with scarce lockdowns or breathers to establish a concrete sense of space or mood. The finished film was apparently chopped down from a 4-hour initial cut, and RZA's urgency to incorporate all his favorite footage at the expense of coherence or pacing is obvious and overwhelming. Yet the stewy, overheated enthusiasm eventually proves contagious, and by the time the pick finally finds its groove toward the end, subdividing the screen into comic book-like panels and splashing slow-motion rivers of blood in graceful patterns across the camera, an anything-goes midnight movie mood triumphs. Though he's notched memorable supporting roles in the past, RZA is too withdrawn an on-screen presence to carry the film, even when he's outfitted with the titular bodily modification. Fortunately, he's supported by a fierce assembly of rock-solid pros who let loose with high degrees of good humor, especially Lei, who speaks English in a hysterical approximation of the clenched-jawed dubbing of vintage kung fu pics, and Crowe, who smirkingly goes for broke to an extent that viewers haven't seen from him since, well, ever. Though the script is of tangential importance here, its inability to stick to a consistent tone can be groan-worthy, especially when RZA's voiceover breaks from its zen-like contemplativeness into lines like, "These motherfuckers had a Gatling gun and more bullets than China has rice." The score from RZA and Howard Drawson is wonderful, with touches of Ennio Morricone and found sound, even if the film's reliance on anachronistic soundtrack music from Isaac Hayes and Kanye West can distract. The King Emperor's undercover emissary, Jackknife, arrives in the village to monitor the gold and takes up residence in the Pink Blossom, a brothel run by Madame Blossom Lady Silks. Madame Silver sends members of the rodent clan to kill Zini before he can reach the village, but Zini kills them. The mercenary Brass Body arrives in the village and meets with Silver. He is sent to kill Zen. The blacksmith meets with Silk in the brothel and delivers the final payment needed to free her. After arriving in the village, Zenian and his men are confronted by Brasson and find that they cannot physically harm him because his skin turns to metal on impact. Brass beats Zenian, destroys his bladeland armor. Zenny's last surviving man sacrifices himself to pull a canopy support beam loose, burying Brass under heavy stone. The blacksmith is watching the fight. He rescues Zen and helps him recover his penance for crafting the weapon that killed Zen's father. Meanwhile, the gold shipment arrives in the village. Accompanied by 2 skilled warriors, the Gemini's Thalians soon confront the Geminis and their men, and in the ensuing fight, Poison Dagger assassinates the Geminis and the Lions capture the gold. Jack later arrives to investigate the incident and learns that the Geminis were poisoned with mercury-tipped weapons, leading him to the blacksmith. The Lion's theft prompts the governor to send his jackal troops to recover the shipment or destroy the village. Zinni asks the blacksmith to craft him a new suit of weaponized armor. The Lions suspect that the blacksmith is helping Zinni and have him tortured for information. The blacksmith refuses to talk and Brass cuts off his forearms. Jack, who had been following the blacksmith, saves him from bleeding to death. While the blacksmith recovers, he tells Jack of his past as an emancipated American slave who accidentally killed a white man who refused to let him go. He fled America by boat and went to China, where monks trained him to use his body's energy to perform superhuman feats. Jack, with the aid of the blacksmith, crafts his greatest weapon, a pair of iron forearms that he can animate using this energy. Zinni recovers and joins Jack and the blacksmith. Meanwhile, Blossom offers to let Silver hide the gold in a secret tomb beneath the brothel in return for payment. The gold is stored in a coffin which is raised up to the rafters. That night, Blossom has her girls serve the Lions, and Silk serves Brass. At Blossom's signal, the girls use weapons hidden in their mouths to poison many of the Lions. And they join with Blossom as the Black Widows. When Silk tries to poison Brass, his skin protects him, and he beats and almost kills her zany Jack, and the blacksmith arrive and join with the Black Widows to fight the remaining Lions while Blossom and Bronze fight and kill each other. While fighting, Jack Poison Dagger is crushed to death between large moving gears. Silver and Zenna fight in the tomb. Zenna cuts the coffin free and it crushes Silver, killing him. The blacksmith finds Silk, who dies in his arms. Heck confronts Brass and his iron fists prove capable of inflicting damage on Brass's seemingly invincible body. While Brass is in metal form, a powerful punch from the blacksmith shatters him to pieces. Jack runs outside into him to stop the soldiers from decimating the building with Gatling guns. Ultimately, Jack leaves the village to accompany the gold, and Zinni tells the blacksmith that he has gained a brother. With the clans destroyed and the village safe, the blacksmith vows to keep it that way and destroys the sign pointing to his weapon shop. During the credits, Zinni's pregnant fiancée is kidnapped by a bird clan, prompting Zinni to seek the blacksmith's aid. A selection of the film's cast, clockwise: Rick Yun, Russell Crowe, Lucy Liu, Kung Lu, Jamie Chung, and David Bautista. Anne, emancipated slave from America who becomes the blacksmith of Jungle Village, channels an ancient energy to turn himself into a living weapon. His name is Thaddeus Smith Dozer, wrote the role specifically for himself and trained in Hunga for 2 hours a day over 2 months in preparation. Rick Yunus. Zenith Exlated, the son of the murdered Lion Clan leader who goes to Jungle Village to avenge his father's death. R said that he had Yun in mind for the role before the script had been completed. Russell Crowe is Jack Knife, an OPM-addicted British soldier named after his signature weapon. The character was partly inspired by RZ's late cousin Old. Dirty Bastard Crowe based his performance on Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry 1971. And The Outlaw, Josie Wales, 1976. Crowe agreed to join the cast because of his previous working relationship with R's. Crowe was only able to spend 10 days filming his scenes. Lucy Lewis Madame Blossom, the owner of the Pink Blossom brothel, whom Lou described as the queen of the village. Lou wanted to emphasize Blossom's strength against all the male fighters and convinced Arza to give the character a fight sequence with Kung Lee's Bronze Lion. David Bautista as Brass Body, a mercenary, capable of turning his body to metal, making him invulnerable. Bautista described the character as a good guy who made a lot of bad choices in his life. He doesn't really understand the difference between right and wrong, auditioned Bautista for the role after. Seeing him moving as fast as lightning during a stick fighting training video, Jae Chung as Lady Silk, a member of the Lion Clan, came to Ars's attention following his 2008 mixed martial arts fight against Frank Shamrock Bronze. Lion's fighting style incorporates elements of Tiger Kung Fu and Lee's own training in kicks and scissor kicks. Byron Mann as Silver Lion, the leader of the Lion Clan after he kills the previous leader. Mann was initially cast for a smaller role, but after his successful audition, he was given the bigger role of Silver Lion. The cast also includes Pam Grier as the blacksmith's mother, Jane Osrit Chow as blacksmith's assistant, McGean as Zinni's ally Chan, Daniel Wu as Poison Dagger, and Andrew Lin and Grace Huang as the Geminis. Co-writer Eli Roth appears in a cameo. Several veteran martial arts actors, including Chin Quan Tai as Golden Lion, Brian Liang as Hyena, Chief Telly Lu as Iron Lion, Shwed Jingyao as Copper Lion, Zhu Shu as Zenny's fiancé Chi Terrence, as the governor, and Gordon Liu as the abbot appeared in the film. Liu's role was written for RZ's Shaolin teacher Shir Yan Ming, but Ming could not obtain permission to return to China for filming production. Development of the film began in 2003 when Arza produced the soundtrack for Quentin Tarantino's film Kill Bill. Arz set himself a $50,000 budget and flew to the Kill Bill set, Beijing, where he spent approximately 30 days taking notes on the way Tarantino directed the film. In 2005, Ard met Eli Roth in Iceland, and they traveled together to L.A. During the journey, Arzid told Roth of his idea for a kung fu genre film, which attracted Roth's interest, but no further progress was made. RZA completed the story for the film, but Roth convinced him that he would need a completed screenplay for the project to gain any support. In 2007, after Roth's Hostel Part 2 was released, Roth and Arzier agreed to seriously pursue the project. The pair took the project to several studios and met with their preferred producer, Edward R. Pressman. One of the studios suggested setting the film in a post-apocalyptic situation, which RZ considered. They took the project to Strike Entertainment, which considered that it needed more development, and assigned several writers to write the script, which began to depart from RZA's initial idea. RZA continued to work with Strike Entertainment's writers, but Roth, who turned from filming Inglourious Bastard, was disappointed with the written screenplay, and he and RZ spent a year developing and finalizing it. In total, they spent between 18 months and 2 years developing the screenplay in between other projects and turned RZA's 90 pages story into a 130 pages screenplay. Citing the specificity of the fictional universe in the Star Wars series, Roth said that the pair tried to fully define the aspects of the man with their on fists to make it interesting without fight scenes. Roth said that Arzahad imagined every tribe, every fighting style, every costume. The original script focused on several animal-themed clans fighting over territory, in particular Jungle Village, which acted as a center for shipments. As the script developed, several of the clans were removed and the focus shifted to commerce and the transportation of government gold, which also introduced the government as a higher power over the clans. RZA and Roth approached fights in the script by introducing a new character, fighting style, or weapon to avoid monotony. If a fight did not advance the story, they removed it. Arzin then financed and directed a short martial arts film called Wuong vs. the Golden Phoenix, featuring Hong Kong-based kung fu-trained actors. When Roth pitched the man with their on fist to producer Z, used the short film to prove that he could handle the martial arts action and be trusted to take on his first directing role. On May 7, 2010, Universal Pictures announced it had agreed to finance and distribute the film, which Roth and Strike Entertainment's Marc Abraham and Eric Newman would produce. The producers gave a $20 million budget. During the development process, Tarantino agreed to lend his name to the film with a presented by credit. In October 2012, Arza said that he and Tarantino had intended to cross over The Man with the Iron Fists with Tarantino's 2012 Western Django Unchained. The crossover would have included a younger version of RZA's blacksmith character in a slave auction, but scheduling conflicts prevented RZA's participation. The Man with the Iron Fist spent 14 weeks in pre-production, including 4 to 6 weeks on locations. Counting RZ insisted that 6 weeks of pre-production would be sufficient, but Marc Abraham told him to take weeks, for which Arza was later thankful after her aged week 13 and still needed more time. During filming, and Roth discussed the potential for a sequel if the film was successful filming, so I said, "You know what, I don't need that shot. I mean, I achieved at least 85% of my vision. You're not going to get everything, you understand, because some stuff is dangerous. Some stuff is impractical. It's better to go CGI." Principal photography took place over approximately 10 weeks on a $20 million budget. Filming began in China in December 2010, in locations including the city of Shanghai and Hangdian World Studios, and continued until March 2011. Corey Ewan was the film's action choreographer. Compensate for time lost to filming ensues. Some scenes were filmed in a single take. Approximately 6 weeks into filming, RZ began pushing the crew to work faster to remain on schedule. His assistant director eventually informed RZ that because of the push, some stunt workers were injured and being sent to hospital. After this, RZ abandoned some of his intended shots and replaced them with computer-generated images. Roth also directed some shots for Ars, Crowe, and Lou were originally scripted to fight each other, but because of Crowe's limited shooting schedule, he did not have the time to rehearse the fight, and instead, Lou was scripted to fight Lou. The first cut of the film was 4 hours long, and Arsa suggested splitting it into 2 films, but Roth disagreed. It was edited to 96 minutes to meet the studio's requirements and to excise graphic content that would cause it to receive a restrictive rating, limiting its audience, abandoned the editing process for 2 weeks, feeling disgust at having to cut the film. In October 2012, he said that he intended to release a director's cut of the film for home viewing and would reinsert at least 13 minutes of the cut footage. Doza described the film as an homage to The Marshal, art films off the Hong Kong-based Shaw Brothers. The film used mostly practical special effects in preference to CGI, an effect in which Yun's character kills 6 opponents whose airborne blood spray spells out revenge in Chinese was specifically written to use CGI. Arza declined to subtitle the message for English audiences. The action scenes resulted in several injuries, and Bautista suffered raw and bleeding arms from Arz's sandpaper-like propon fists during their fight scene. Marketing RZ launched an 11-day music concert called the Iron Fist Tour to promote the film in association with Rock the Bells and Guerrilla Union. It featured performances by members of Wuhan Clan and other artists. The tour began on October 3, 2012, and visited several North American cities, including New York City, Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. That an animated short film about the blacksmith's journey to China and his first meeting with Brass Body, which Arza narrated, was released on October 20th, 2012, as a prequel to the film's 16 heavily stylized posters. Each by a different artist were placed in outdoor locations in several North American cities and were designed to allow pedestrians to move and keep them. The marketing campaign sponsored the 2012 BT Hip Hop Awards, star Bautista's debut mixed martial arts debut fight at Classic Entertainment and Sports Real Pain in October 2012, and the release of the video game Assassin's Creed 3 the film, premiered in Los Angeles and New York City and directly targeted minority demographics. RZA promoted the film at the Hispanic-owned Martial Arts History Museum in Burbank, California, and an original Spanish dub viral video was also released our targeted African-American audiences by promoting the film on rapper Snoop Dogg's YouTube channel. An online awareness campaign included partnerships with Machinima Incorporated, hip-hop news site Global Grind Ultimate Fighting Championship, IGN, and Spotify Music. The film features music from the Black Keys, Kanye West, Wiz Khalifa, My Chemical Romance, John Fusante, and Chinese singer Sally RZA. Also developed new tracks based on excerpts from Wuhan Clan Master tracks provided by Sony Music and songs performed by William Bell Isaac Hayes and Mabel John, which Stax Records provided. Composer Howard Dross wrote the original musical cues for the film. RZA had not initially set out to score the film. Inserted temporary tracks of songs she wanted to use. After watching the temporary track cut of the film, the music was found to be unsuitable, and it was suggested that RZA provide the music. Ars sought Tarantino's help with the score after he helped Tarantino with the score for Kill Bill. Tarantino also suggested Ars entirely produce the score. RZA and Drossen developed and finalized the score. They then developed the film's soundtrack, which was scheduled for release on October 23, 2012, and features 15 songs from the film, including original songs by Kanye West, the Wuhan Clan, Talib Kweli, Ghostface Killer, Pusha T, Raekwon, and collaborations by RZ with the Black Keys and Flatbush Zombies. The character Jack Knife, who is influenced by rapper Old Dirty Bastard, has a theme tune featuring a jaw harp, cue reminiscent of the artist's song Shimmy Shimmya. The blacksmith is represented by cues from Isaac Hayes' music. Release. The Man with the Iron Fist premiered on October 25, 2012 at Mann's Chinese 6th Theater in Hollywood. David Bautista attended in a yellow spandex suit, which he wore as a tribute to Bruce Lee, who wore a similar outfit in Game of Death 1972. The film was released in North America on November 2, 2012, home media. The Man with the Iron Fist was released on DVD, Blu-ray, and digital download on February 12th, 2013 in North America. The DVD and Blu-ray editions contain the theatrical release version of the film, an unrated cut containing approximately 12 minutes of additional footage, deleted scenes, and 3 featurettes. A look inside The Man with the Iron Fists, A Path to the East. And on the set with RZ, The Man with the Iron Fist movie review. Here is a colossally joyless Star Ego Fest, a martial arts mashup in which one of the characters with absolute seriousness refers to his penis as the baby's arm. It's co-produced by Eli Roth and directed and co-written by its star Ars, the Wu Clan rapper, whose stunning lack of charisma and acting ability is apparent from the get-go. The film is also presented by Quentin Tarantino, and the master's influence is felt primarily in the movie's garish opening and closing credits, where there is a flicker of the old magic. But this has really none of the delirious inspiration and provocation of the Kill Bill movies. Ars plays a blacksmith in 19th century Imperial China who leads a ragtag warrior crew defending a village against marauding gangsters. Russell Crowe is roistering British soldier of fortune Jack Knife. He pleasures a searing bevy of Chinese prostitutes with his baby's arm, but these same prostitutes are naturally allowed their own measure of empowering violence. They are employed by Madame Blossom, played by Lucy Liu, who is now almost clinically catatonic. Rick Yun plays Zen Yi, and former wrestling star David Bautista plays the sinister tough guy Brassbody. It's lean, boorish, and dull. Look, I get it. Arza loves kung fu movies. He grew up immersed in the grindhouse theaters of New York City and clearly has strong feelings of nostalgia for the genre films of his youth. With that out of the way, let's talk about The Man with the Iron Fists. The film, A Labor of Love, tells the story of a blacksmith played by Arza, who also wrote and directed the film, living in the margins of a wild town known as Jungle City. It was filmed on location in China, which I guess is supposed to make it feel more legitimate, and as is, mandated for all films. Remotely resembling kung fu violence these days? Gordon Liu makes an appearance. I don't stand opposed to kung fu movies, though I admit I haven't seen many of them theoretically. The structure of this one is appealing. It involves, and bear with me here, because the intro to the film is mildly incoherent. The transport of the governor's gold, the betrayal of the Lion Clan leader, the banding together of fighters to defeat a common enemy, and the defense of a hometown. The original cut of the film was supposedly upwards of 4 hours, and the gaps tend to show. However, the recut hour and a half is still an exercise in tedium. Again, it is clear that Ars understands the elements of the kung fu movie, but he allows himself to get lost in them. When the film is allowed to breathe, it has its moments. Crowe playing As Far As I Can, tell an aristocratically styled British cowboy is in full-on gladiator gone to seed mode. He lumps around the various stage pieces using every ounce of his considerably bloated charisma. Liu plays well. She plays it like she did in Kill Bill, acknowledging a certain absurdity, but giving it out straight-faced. Anyway, of course I should also make mention of Byron Mann, playing the ridiculously hirsute lion. He gets most of the best lines. All delivered with some delightfully over-the-top intonation, and appears to be having even more fun than Crowe. Sadly, the titular man is played by Arza himself, and it is clear that he is just too close to the whole production. He tasks himself essentially with acting as the heart and soul of the film. Unfortunately, despite his obvious talents behind the mic and the fun he can clearly have while acting, he lacks a weighty enough presence to anchor the film. I realize this may be asking a lot, but considering Arza sometimes gets shown up by former pro wrestler Dave Bautista strutting around, this is where the film falls apart. For all the detail and attempts at world building that RZ imbues his film with, there is a lack of investment in the shallow, truncated events of the revenge quest we are urged to get engaged with. In short, we don't care. For a kung fu movie to work, the narrative has to impact the psyche harder than any punch to the throat. For all the dismembered limbs and wanting violence, the film's conclusion comes and goes. This may be a random aside, but my mind kept turning back to the aforementioned instant classic comic book, Infinite Kung Fu, freed of the time constraints of a typical motion picture. Mlaud tells the story of two kung fu fighters on a quest to avenge the evil done by a rogue poison kung fu practitioner. While I admit I'm comparing apples and oranges a bit here, the narrative momentum of the book, with its rich tapestry of characters, sense of setting and mood, and breakneck action set pieces, achieves something of a Zen perfection for the genre. Hell, it even has Gordon Liu on hand to write a brief foreword introducing the book. Nevertheless, I will applaud RZ for fulfilling this particular cinematic dream. He had been workshopping this film since the mids, and I don't for 1 second doubt that Arza has a rich appreciation of Kung films and the esoteric lore that travels along with them. He approaches his movie head-on, attempting to imbue life in a genre that is largely dead these days, unfortunately losing oneself in devotion to a forgotten genre. However noble, can cause one to lose sight of why the genre might collapsed under the weight of meta-jokes and bad is good film is perhaps best. Left to nostalgia. This is the kind of film that does exactly what you expect from it. Plenty of over-the-top gore, exploding heads, and some really cool martial arts weapons. Directed by the RSI, really enjoyed the film despite the rather run-involving story. You can tell it was a labor of love for the RZ, but his character lacks any real personality. Why should we care about him more if he survives or not? The movie belongs to Russell Crowe, who is clearly having a lot of fun as the awesomely named Jackknife from the trailers. It thought he was going to be a villain, but he's actually one of the main heroes. Kungla has a good role as an insane villain and gets to showcase his amazing martial arts prowess. Rick Yun, who is a very underrated and extremely cool actor, is great as always, but once again, he doesn't have all that much to do. There are plenty of fights and craziness, but for some reason, it just didn't gel with me. It's too buzzy trying to feel like a Tarantino film, but lacks his sparkling script work. There is, however, someness humor, which made the film better than average. The RS directs confidently, and I'd be intrigued to see what he comes up with next. Other information about this film. Here I am struggling to write about RZA's would-be martial arts epic when the question arises in my dormant mind, didn't I watch a better film, Silver Linings Playbook and Moonrise Kingdom R films I still haven't seen from last year, which look absolutely fantastic, and I'm stuck writing about this piece of drollery, directed by Wuhan Clan headsman and producer Aru, written by Eli Roth, with that ever-meaningless endorsement presented by Quentin Tarantino. The film is an homage film to the martial arts epic and very much mimics the general idea, but with a budget. I think is a general overstatement. The charm and style of a martial arts epic is made by its low budget, incredibly bad dubbing, and grainy superb quality. In addition, it made the very over-ambitious mistake of having an ensemble cast instead of one leading man, so you end up with a very watery, toned-down narrative that doesn't really follow a particular person or strand. The film stars Arza himself as the title referencing man with iron fists, an emancipated slave turned blacksmith has his arms cut off by an evil corrupt gang known as the Lions who recently mutinied under their former heroic leader. Asar result the Grafsh himself Iron Hands, which he controls with a horrific understanding of Kian Chakra. Eliand originally shot about 4 hours of footage when the studio and producers told them they had to adapt to a 1:30 structure or Zier wanted to pushed the format into 2 films and considered abandoning the project as Eli Roth persuaded him otherwise. You can tell the film is heavily cut as the film focuses quite heavily in its supporting characters who have no business being in. The majority of the screen time barely has any lines or character development. This is probably the editing team doing the best of a bad job, because ours cannot even vaguely act Iron Fist. However, regardless of the prying eyes and harsh restrictions of a studio and producers, I can't really pretend The Man with the Iron Fists was ever going to be vaguely palatable as a film. Featuring supporting roles by Russell Crowe, Lucy Liu, they doth their very best to carry the film's narrative structure. Not that there ever was one Russell Crowe placed the British former army. I don't even know some guy. He's on vacation or something. Anyway, his name is Jackknife because he's Jack and he has a knife. Lucy Liu is a house owner who are also trained assassins. The action scenes are somewhere between good and over the top. Its set pieces are a bit too fancy and just look ridiculous, as opposed to cool. Particularly the whole In Young Blade Man and wife thing they had going. Also, where's the consistency warriors who can fend off a ridiculous amount of soldiers at once, but a dart kills them? Why are darts so overpowered? I just don't even humming. And so the gears of the great grindhouse revival grind on. We've seen all manner of trash cinema subgenres given the Neo treatment in recent years, zombies and car chase flicks and the Tarantino-Rodriguez double bill that started it all, black exploitation in Michael J. White's Black Dynamite, and leather-clad post-apocalyptic action in Neil Marshall's Doomsday. And that's just to name a few of the bigger and better ones. It was inevitable that Kung Fu would come into the mix at some point. At a glance, RZA's directorial debut would seem to owe a sizable debt to Kill Bill. It's certainly been sold heavily on this association with the prominent Quentin Tarantino presence credit and the presence of the former Oren Isi Lutsalu. However, where Tarantino's 2-volume film borrowed liberally from a wide variety of BEM movie staples, of which Kung Fu was but one, The Man with the Iron Fists has its sights set squarely on evoking the spirit of the blood-spattered Oriental beat-em-up flicks, which flooded America's drive-ins and grindhouse rattled the cages of Britain's censors. Never forget, Shogun Assassin was banned since 1983, and of course inspired the music of RZ's Wu-Tang Clan. While I'm a very long way from being an expert on their music, I do vividly recall the track on which they discuss increasingly hideous methods of torture and have often pondered whether or not that might have fueled the imaginations of those who would pioneer this past decade's wave of ordeal horror. In a sense, then things may have come full circle on the Man with their Iron Fists. As L.I. Rothko writes, with R.S. as for the tale that in Roth present us with her, well, it's a busy one, and no mistake what with rival clans feuding, a shipment of gold passing through, and all manner of oddball characters popping up. Here, and there among them a big dude whose body can magically turn to brass, a plummy English adventurer with a hearty appetite for the ladies, sporting a unique knife-gun hybrid, and an enigmatic African-Amian blacksmith. Some might bemoan the narrative for being overloaded and only serving to delay the inevitable whirlwind of fists and blood, but to my mind it works. With the exception of Byron Mann's irrefutably evil Silver Lion, for the most part there are arguably no clearly defined goodies and baddies here. Those who at first seem maniacal and sadistic have moments of humanity and compassion, whilst the more ostensibly honorable may boast mean streaks a mile wide. It may be that I'm particularly receptive to this sort of thing, as I've been watching Game of Thrones a lot recently, but I like the lack of clear-cut representations of good and evil. These are all just people playing their angles, pursuing their goals from their own perspectives, and whatever side of the moral compass they fall on is largely in the eye of the beholder. It helps that ours has brought together a strong and compelling cast, most of whom appear to be having a whale of a time, as the womanizing, guts-slashing, outrageously over-the-top jackknife Russell Crowe hasn't been this much fun to watch in years. His monologue, in which he introduces himself to the patrons of the brothel, could give serious competition to gladiators. My name is Maxius Decimus Meridius. For memorability and quotability, equally entertaining and excessive is the aforementioned Byron Man as the wild-haired, mean-spirited Silver Lion. At the less melodramatic end of the scale, Dave Bautista is a pleasant surprise. We don't expect such understatement from wrestlers turned actors, and of course his physical stature and expertise make him a formidable presence. Lucilu also gives a strong turn as the Steely Madam, though I was a little surprised how minor a presence she is in the film, given she's one of the biggest stars. By comparison, Rick Yun's vengeful warrior comes off a little thin, and Jamie Chun doesn't get a great deal to do as Ars's love interest, though they're both doing their best with the least interesting characters in the piece. And then, of course, there's Arza himself. He's certainly not bad as the titular iron-fisted blacksmith, but there's a definite sense that it might be just a wee bit out of his depth here, as the ostensible lead. Even so, he certainly doesn't shame himself dramatically or physically, nor do his duties as actor seem to have detracted much from his directing. Some reviews have lambasted the disjointed, untidy feel of the Man with their Iron Fists, but if we once again consider the film as a tribute to the early wave of video nasty martial arts movies, this messiness is entirely appropriate. I just threw this slightly Awkward editing that the spirit of the era is evoked with those now cliched superimposed scratches and other such grindicisms notable by their absence. Yes, this is a good thing. The will fully over-complicated plot is often conveyed via our stroll narration. Vast suave, the soft exposition has stilly summed up in a manner that gives the sense this could almost be an Eastern film heavily re-edit for the Western market, as of course was often the case in the old days. Of course, the abundance of CGI and wire work inevitably detracts from that early VHS mood somewhat, but there are certainly worse offenders out there in the digital gore stakes, and the overall quality of the action more than compensates. Some might also accuse the hip-hop heavy soundtrack as undermining the old-school sensibility, but it's hardly a surprise given the director's history, and its very incongruity is part of the appeal. Not unlike the synth score of Shogun Assassin. I'm a little sad to see how badly The Man with the Iron Fist has fared critically and commercially thus far. But as we all know, today's flop is often tomorrow's cult classic. It certainly doesn't break new ground, but it radiates enthusiasm for its genre, with more than enough style to make for an agreeable evening's entertainment. And while it might not set the world on fire, it may very well get you shadowboxing in front of the TV. Everybody born before 1990 know what the Wong clan is, and to a certain degree was introduced to kung fu movies because of the mastermind of the Super Banarsh has a passion for the genre, though, that made every one of us fond of him, like he was some kind of dorky uncle. I'm noting to kung fu movies myself, but learning about the release of The Man with Their Iron Fists a couple years ago made me unreasonably happy, and that feeling might have more to do with hip-hop than with the idea of a kung fu movie in itself. I thought I'd give The Man with the Iron Fists a try now that the sequel is in theaters, and man, I had a lot more fun watching it than I probably should have. Jungle Village has been torn by feuding clans for several years. The Lion Clan is hired by the regional governor to protect a shipment of gold passing through the region, but all hell breaks loose when their leader, Gold Lion, is murdered by his second and third in command and the gold disappears. Clans are feuding over the disappeared loot, Gold Lion's sons, and is out for blood. Government forces are looming, and it's the village's blacksmith Thaddeus that'll hold the key to this conflict. He's not your average weapons merchant, and the way he'll bend will eventually rewrite the geopolitical map of Jungle Village. The Man with Iron Fists is a movie that can be difficult to understand out of context. It's a bit of a fantasy come to life, both for Arzandevri fan of the Wong clan who grew up with 36 Chambers for soundtrack. I'm aware it could come off as a dorky blood-drunk overkill movies hot by kung fu enthusiasts, but it's not what it is. The Man with the Iron Fists operates within a colorful alternate universe where killing has been turned into a way of life by warred warriors connected with the forces of the universe, and where the laws of physics have long stopped applying. Once you make peace with the idea that The Man with the Iron Fists is a ludicrous, impossible, and violently stylish, the only thing you have left to do is to love it for what it is. There are a handful of ridiculous plot details I might have overlooked in my overwhelming joy of watching a directed kung fu movie. For example, Thaddeus is a bit of a convenient hero. I quite frankly love the idea of having the blacksmith in the middle of the conflict because the feuding factions all depended on him to get their weapons. But of course he's got this super secret badass training he doesn't show to anyone until it's convenient to do so. It does fit the mythological vibe of The Man with the Iron Fists, but it is hovered over so quickly. It's almost funny. It's like someone backed into the screenplay on a second draft and stapled this detail in order to make Thaddeus the hero. Once again, though, The Man with the Iron Fists is about finding excuse for on-screen violence. Don't go into it expecting award-winning writing. I've never been into this turn-of-the-century kung fu movies revival. The only thing I remember about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is finally making out with that long-time crush I had in not finishing it, if you know what I mean. The Man with Their Iron Fists is not that kind of slow elegiac and masturbatory film. It's a western wearing a kimono, a raw myth drenched in the blood of sinful warriors. It's a movie's hot with undeniable energy and enthusiasm, and it ultimately is contagious to the viewer. It's not mandatory to be a longtime Wong clan fan in order to enjoy The Man with the Iron Fists, but there's a special satisfaction to it, considering the reckless abandon with which the movie was made. Last weekend, I went to see RC's The Man with the Iron Fists. The premise of the film is a bit hazy. There's several plot lines, Some merge themselves well. Others seem out of place and awkwardly executed. Unfortunately, the ones that don't work turn out to be the main characters. The story begins with gold being set across the town of Jungle Village. The clan of the Lions, which runs the town, has recently lost their leader, Gold Lion, who has not so secretly being murdered by Silver Lion to take his place. They want the gold and are planning to intercept the caravan, as far as plots go. Not original, but still. Byron Mann was one of the engaging characters in the film. He looks and acts like David Bowie more and more as the movie progresses, but somehow it works. Gold Lion's son Zen-E, the ex-Blade, has learned of the murder and betrayal of his father. He's about to get married in a scene that plays like so many other revenge plots. He loves his bride, but he must avenge his father first. That involves donning a very deadly spike thrusting armor added to his already amazing martial arts skill, making him almost invincible almost. Rick Yun and Cung will be the ones on a fight scene, although the spike armor is a bit of an overkill. Cool, but too much. Gadgetry for a guy who's good without it. I guess Ars felt that his character needed a gimmick. Zen eventually will run into his own Achilles heel, but let's not get to that yet. The best character to watch is Madame Blossom, who owns the Pink Blossom Brothel. I must confess I was rooting for her at some point. She seems to cooperate fully with everyone, especially Silver Lion, until she eventually makes her play. I'm not going to spoil it for you, mainly because you'll see it coming. Otherwise, the brothel ends up to be Grand Central Station for everyone and everything. This includes Jackknife, who, after a very bloody introduction to his knife gun, becomes a permanent fixture of the place, bedding several women at once. Get used to him. He turns out to be a main character eventually. He looks positively uninterested and uninteresting. And he also, in the background and only appearing from time to time, is the blacksmith Thaddeus speaking from the shadows and only appearing to bed his supposed love lady. I've never seen more dead chemistry between two people than these two, and their individual performances don't help either. You'd think Blacksmith at least would display some kung fu prowess at some point. RZY apparently trained in Hunga over 2 months for his role. If he ever does do martial arts, someone forgot to put that on the film, or it was a bling. Can You'll Miss It scene, his presence is very subdued, even when he finally emerges as the hero. His counterpart will be the completely invulnerable brass body who can change his body to metal. Being what he is, he's invulnerable to Zen-Yi's X-Blade armor and will eventually run head-on into the blacksmith. I was a lot more interested in Zen-Yi's final battle with Silver Lion. Luckily, the X-Blade does recover and somehow regains his armor, showing off in one very cinematographic scene in which blood flows from all his opponents at once. Finally, Arza does remember to put Zen in Silver Lion's fight in the film, and we even get a room of mirrors reminiscent of Bruce Lee's. Enter the Dragon. Remarkable are also the fights between the Lion Clan and the Protectors of the Gold. The Gemini is played by Andrew Lin and Grace Wong, who really outshine the protagonists by a mile. There's an appearance by Daniel Wu as Poison Dagger, but he's given nobody to fight except Russell Crowe's Jackknife character, making it the lamest fight ever. Disappointed as I was, I have to say that I can't quite point my finger at what went wrong. The movie plays a lot like a tribute to kung fu movies, and perhaps more of a comic adaptation or a music video made within the genre than a full-length film. It's somewhat entertaining for some scenes and drags on for others. In short, it does make for a cool trailer, but I think it falls short of its intended mark. Can't really recommend it. Extra information if you feel like your life has been missing some kick-ass kung fu action sequences lately. You're not alone. Millions of people have been losing sleep, thinking of the sweet, sweet sound of the human skull fracturing against the bridge of another human's foot. When the cure for what ails you is more roundhouse kicks, leave it to Dr. Quentin Tarantino to present you with some medicine. Open wide, sucker, and go see the man with the iron fists. Iron Fists is quite possibly one of the best movies this year, not because it's really all that good, but because it's trying something different than everything else. It's 1 part Kill Bill, 3 parts Hard Boiled, Throw in some Enter the Dragon and toss Russell Crowe into the mix just for kicks. Pun almost definitely intended, highly stylized, graphic violence, awesome set pieces, and spot-on cheesy acting is the order of the day. And what a great order it is. The film is directed by Rees of Wong Clan fame and was written by RZ and Eli Roth. Quentin Tarantino attached his name as producer to make the film just as awesome as any one movie could possibly get. Of course, a movie bleeding such adrenaline-fueled awesome from every orifice isn't without its faults. Arzit, who also stars, is easily the weakest actor of the bunch. Some of the action sequences could really have stood to be cleaned up, but I'm not going to lose sleep over petty complaints like these. The fact is, Kung Fu appears to be back and not in an ironic way. Thankfully. What's more, Artie isn't slowing down. His remake of The Last Dragon, starring Samuel L. Jackson as shown, is slated for release as early as next year. Now, the story of Iron Fists is a little bit messy, so if you're going for a literary opus, you should probably try something like Cloud Atlas. 7 clans are involved in the hunt for a legendary treasure. These assassins, warriors, and British guy are all led to the middle of a feudal Japanese village where the blacksmith resides. The blacksmith decides that it is up to him to protect his village from the insanity that is swept down upon them. Cue up the Asakri. If you can forgive a needlessly complicated plot and some sloppy fighting sequences, then you're going to find an absolute gem in The Man with the Iron Fists. The style far outweighs the substance. But if you're going to a Kung Fu flick for substance, then I've got some bad news for you about literally every other Kung Fu film ever made. There are head kicks of plenty moments of genuine humor, and I defy you to leave the theater and not believe that it's possible to have an entire fight sequence while suspended in midair. It's these kind of films that make the theater experience enjoyable, and I'd recommend not missing out on it. The Man with the Iron Fists could have been one of those movies that's so silly and bad, it's good. Sadly, this isn't the case. Wong Clan rapper and newcomer filmmaker Ars directed, co-wrote, and stars in this good-looking mess of a film. Despite some good ideas, Arzir's lack of directing experience clearly shows in the film's execution. Arza portrays the blacksmith, who later becomes the anonymous man with the iron fists. The blacksmith is the token black character in Jungle Village set somewhere in 19th century China. He forges deadly weapons for the several different types of clans. He is in a relationship with the prostitute, Lady Silk Jia Chung, both of whom are saving up all their money in order to start a new life outside of Jungle Village. The blacksmith's stable life takes a turn when rival clans fight over a large shipment of imperial gold. We slowly meet the different kinds of clans, one by one. Game of Thrones style, though the only one that's really important is the Lion Clan. When the leader of the Lion Clan is betrayed and assassinated, the treacherous Silver Lion becomes their new leader, aided by his loyal servant Bronze Lion. This switch in leadership changes the Honorable Lion Clan into a gang of thieves. They force the blacksmith to make hundreds of weapons to use in the struggle for the imperial gold. The son of the murdered Lion Clan leader Zenrik Yun hopes to seek revenge against those who were involved in the assassination, including Silver Lion and Bronze Lion. Rounding out the cast is Jack Knife, a British soldier who's deadly with knives, brass body. Dave Bautista, a massive mercenary who has the unique ability to turn his entire body hard brass. And Madame Blossom, Lucy Liu, the owner of the Pink Blossom brothel Lady Silk works at, and the leader of her own clan of assassins. There's a lot going on in the film, though it's not always comprehensible. Random characters appear and disappear at different times. And keeping track of who's on whose side is not really clear. It doesn't help that Ardan narrates the film in the most boring, non-engaged way possible. His subdued portrayal of the blacksmith gets tiresome really quick. And unfortunately, this lasts for the majority of the film's 96-minute running time. It isn't until the blacksmith obtains his iron fists that Ari gives somewhat of an energetic performance. Everyone else's acting isn't that much better either. Rick Yun, Dave Bautista, and Jamie Chung are wooden, and Russell Crowe merely phoned in his performance. At least Byron, Mann, and Cung get to have a lot of insane fun as the over-the-top bad guys. The film's choreography by Newman is ooh. RZ wanted this film to be a nod toward old-school kung fu movies. It's an admirable try, but the fight sequences and the way they're edited results in uninteresting battles. There are moments of brilliance, especially in the In-Yong fight sequence involving twin royal guards and a free-for-all finale that finally showcases Madame Blossom's deadly assassins. But overall, the martial arts choreography is downplayed by the quick and confusing editing. The Man with the Iron Fists is presented by Quentin Tarantino and features buckets of blood and loads of violence, but it has none of his comedic and storytelling flair. It's understandable why Tarantino would put his name on this film in order to help sell it to audiences, but with his stamp comes the expectation that RZ has given us something cinematically valuable. R still has a lot to learn, but the success or failure of this film will no doubt be important to his growth as a filmmaker, as it's given him experience. A blacksmith living in Jungle Village gets caught up in the middle of a clan feud between multiple factions battling for supremacy and control over a massive cache of gold. The Arzin, one of the heads of the rap group Wu-Tang Clan, directs, co-writes, stars in, and contributes music to his tribute to martial arts movies in this plotless, confusing, beyond reason motion picture. Eli Roth helped him write it as well as contributing as a producer. It was a nice try, but this 96-minute version of what was reportedly a 4-hour film just doesn't cut it in its current form. Even as it is the fight scenes, the lifeblood of these movies are frequently unengaging and lack punch. This is shocking considering Newman designed them. However, this seems more to do with Joe Dustin editing and too many tight shots than anything else. The confusion stems from a plot that is typical martial world iconography, replete with alliances, betrayals, and dozens of characters that are far too easy to lose track of. At 96 minutes, people come and go rather quickly, and even the ones given a lot of screen time seem to have little to no purpose, except to move the film along to its conclusion. Former K1 superstar and current MMA practitioner Cung has headlong into doing movies the last few years. Considering he is now 40 years old, it's a logical and profitable transition for him. Unfortunately, the haphazard editing wreaks havoc with his fight scenes. His bronze lion character recalls the similarly attired Lion Man from one of dozens of clan versus clan movies, and one of the Shaw's last theatrically released films before they ceased making movies, leasing their vast studios out while they focused on television productions. A character called Brass Body seems a variation on Lam Mang's Iron Skin Warrior of the Poison Clan from the Sainal from 1978. It's also a famous kung fu movie plot device to have a steel skin fighter with but a single weak spot that lose his power. Brass Body's weak spot is neither in the eyes, the mouth, or groin, as popularly seen in older HK Kung Fu movies. Gordon Liu is in the film for about 10 minutes, long enough to emulate his iconic role from another classic Gordon Liu moment is reconstructed by Arsa himself. It's a flashback sequence detailing how he ended up in China and taken in by the monks of a temple. With a large razor, he roughly shaves his own head in a similar fashion that Gordon did to his own man in Luoyang's spectacularly gloomy 1984 Zen Yi, one of the main protagonists, is covered in battle armor with numerous porcupine-like blades that spring out all over his body. His shoe knife brought to mind Taiwanese Taekwondo specialist and member of the Venoms, Suni's hidden shoe blade from Chong Cha's Killer Army, 1980. The part of the film where the Iron Fists of the title comes into play is highly reminiscent of Lu Fang's Iron Hands from 1978. In it, Lu's character has his arm chopped off by enemies of his father. A blacksmith fashioned siren appendages for him that also fired arts with hands that extend outward. Unfortunately, all Arz's hands do are light up with the assist of CGI and lots of cartoonish CGI damage. The final between Rick Yun and Byron Mann, who bears our semblance to Wong Tao, partially takes place in a room, elaborately adorned with mirrors that recalls 1973's. Also in the finale, we're told that this dungeon are as littered with assorted deadly traps it whenever see any of them. This being a Wu-style movie, the allusion towards secret passageways and death traps are straight from the Chu Yuan sword playbook, a genre style he reinvigorated in 1976 with the release of Killer Klans and others like. All 1976 after having seen The Raid 2011 with its stunningly brutal action design. The choreography of 2012 is rudimentary by comparison. But again, this appears to be more the fault of the cinematographer and editor than Corey Yuan's. Astonishingly, the DP was an Asian, yet Ching Chan shoots the action so close it's difficult to ascertain what is happening at times. To top it off, the editing rarely offers a glimpse at any move sets. Some characters have barely thrown a kick or a punch before it cuts away to something else. The only action scene that we're allowed to see is an alley fight between Rick Yun and Dave Bautista's character. There are other fleeting moments here and there that show a sign of a spark, but again, the camera and editing does them in. Fortunately, there's none of that shaky cam indulgence that every other movie revels in. It's just very little of the action is allowed to breathe. Considering that Arza is a big fan of Robert Tye's style of wacko action choro, I am befuddled that he didn't hire him for the job. The occasional loopiness and chaotic nature of the film reminded me of Tye's unrestrained work at times. Equally disappointing is the finale. There's no actual end fight between Rick Yun and Byron, Mann, Russell Crowe, and Daniel Wu square off, but that's not a fight either. It's odd to see a film that's supposed to pay tribute to kung fu movies that doesn't even bathe in the art itself. Only RZ and Dave Bautista engage in something resembling a battle. At the end, two Americans and limitations are covered up by CGI, masking the simplistic kick-punch combos. It should also be mentioned the CGI is some of the lousiest I've ever seen. I'm not a fan of rap music at all, and this being RZA's movie, there's lots of hip-hop lacing some of the fight scenes, but not always. The orchestral portions are actually incredibly good at setting the tempo leading up to big events, even if the payoff itself is less than the sum of its parts. One particularly satisfying musical moment has a redone version of the main theme from Chong Cha's House of Traps 1981 playing over a scene. The music does occasionally make some scenes more visible, and Arza honestly manages a good deal of those in a few of these scenes. But again, considering there's 2.5 hours missing, this is all there is to go by. One of the best scenes. Doesn't even involve any kung fu at all. It's a flashback wherein we learn how RZ's character ended up in China. His freedom was given to him by his mother's owner back in slave times. His mother is played by none other than Pam Grier. He ends up in a scuffle with two white men in a stable before stowing away on a ship that wrecks somewhere off the coast of China. There are a couple other good scenes spread throughout. Unfortunately, virtually none of them involve action. The acting is okay, even though it's bizarre to see everything is in Chinese. Yet every major Asian character speaks nothing but English and better English than most Westerners. Russell Crowe comes out on top for delivering his lines as if he's gunning for an Academy Award. RZ, who is the main character, doesn't really feel like he's the main character. He seems nervous being in front of the camera, and his expressionless face keeps him from standing out as the guy the movie is named after. In closing, the overall silliness of Often feels more like a Robert Tye flick than a Chongcha blood and guts fest. I honestly expected to see giant flying spiders submerge from a near river at some point, but thankfully that never happened. The director's passion for the material does shine through on occasion. Unfortunately, not enough of this ended up on screen. This film directed by screenplay by Billy Roth, story by us, produced by Billy. Roth, Marc Abraham, Eric Newman, Thomas Bliss starring Russell Crowe, Kungla Lucy, Lou Byron Mann, Rick David Bautista, Jamie Chung, cinematography Ching Chan, edited by Joe D'Agostini, music by P. Howard Deson Production Company's Shrike Entertainment, Arcade Pictures, distributed by Universal Pictures. Release date November 2nd, 2012 in United States. Running time 96 minutes. United States language. English. Budget $15 million. Box office $20.5 million. So guys, this is the review of The Man with the Iron Fists movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe West Films to our channel. Thanks for watching.